Now, government today has postponed a briefing on level 3 regulations for the second time. The entire country is set to ease restrictions in under a week, but the exact rules are yet to be detailed by the National Command Council. An update on socio-economic relief measures has also been delayed to an unspecified date. Now, for more details on these postponements, I'm joined now via Skype by the Minister in the Presidency, Minister Jackson Mthembu. A very good afternoon to you, Minister, and lovely to have you with us this afternoon. Why the delays for a second time?
Thank you very much. Indeed, you should be concerned. That's why we're here, to explain why the delays. As you will know, yesterday night the President announced that the churches will also be open now. That has then occasioned that those that are dealing with regulations must then include the churches and what should be the protocols that the churches must follow, how must they open, how many people must be there, what are the health regulations that they must also adhere to under a COVID environment. So we needed just the day to include the churches in our regulations. That's why then we have postponed the briefings to tomorrow, so that as we brief the country tomorrow, we have all those that are now allowed to operate, including the churches.
Minister, when the President announced that we would be going to lockdown level 3, he did mention that there were discussions that were going to take place with various religious leaders. So this was no surprise to you that these discussions were going to be happening. Should there not perhaps have been a forward planning and a preempting that in the eventuality that this does become a reality, that provisions for that are already made?
Definitely, it's a point that you are making in good faith. But as you will also know, there are government structures that make the determination. Some of those structures met yesterday. For instance, the National Coronavirus Command Council met yesterday, and also got the briefing from the President and agreed with the President that yes, the President must indeed be the one that pronounces his agreements with the churches that they would also be part of level 3. After the President had pronounced, it's only then that we were then able to effect the necessary changes in the regulations. And that is only today that we were then able to effect the changes. And again, we didn't want to do that in a rush. You'll remember that we had said we will have the press briefing by the Minister of Culture at 12:30. These regulations, by their very nature, the crafting of these regulations, they need time. They go through a particular process. They go to our legal entities, to our legal advisors. So it's not a matter that we needed to rush. It's a matter that we needed to do properly so that we don't do any mistakes and commit mistakes in the crafting of the regulations that allow the churches to also operate. So we are now quite confident that we have done that work. We are now quite confident that come tomorrow, we will be able to speak to South Africa on the regulations that will kick in all of us into alert level 3, us including the churches. So we are here, of course, to say that well, it's unfortunate that we had to postpone 2 press briefings, but it was necessary so that we accommodate all those groupings, including our church and fraternal groupings that have also been included under level 3 now, as pronounced by the President.
Minister, you will remember that when the President announced that there would be an unbanning of tobacco sales, there was an outcry in the country with various submissions being made, and then we saw the Minister of COGTA announcing that that decision was going to be reversed. As we stand now, the President has announced a release of alcohol sales, that alcohol can now be sold but consumed within people's residences and within their private spaces. Is there a level of consensus within the NCCC regarding all the announcement that the President has made, or is there a possibility of another turnaround?
Definitely there will not be any turnaround. What the President has announced stays. There will be limited allowance for sales of liquor as announced by the President on particular days that will be announced by our ministers, and of course there will be no sale of tobacco as alluded to by the President and announced by the President. So the regulations that will be announced tomorrow will be giving concrete implementation of what the President has said. There will not be any deviation from the directive that the President has given.
There have been some quarters, and this is now regarding the sale of alcohol, who have said that due to the non-sale of alcohol, there's been a reduction in gender-based violence in the country. Now, by allowing alcohol sales, that this will further bring gender-based violence into the country and as a problem into homes. Is that something that has been considered?
Tamike, can we allow the ministers who will be briefing the nation on these matters to do so? I'm here to explain the delay on the briefings. I'm responsible for briefings. Those that are responsible for the sale of liquor, for the sale of tobacco, for the sale of other commodities by those who sell them, will then explain in detail what occasioned the decision under level 3. I would like to allow them to give that explanation to the nation and the rationale behind these decisions. While I can, but I think it's proper that I don't steal their thunder. I'm not that type of a person. Let's allow them to explain themselves. They'll be here. In fact, tomorrow, by the way, Tammy, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, it will be the Minister of COGTA, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, together with the Minister Patel, together with the Minister of Justice, Minister Lamula, explaining the regulations that will now include the churches opening under level 3 and other sectors of the economy opening under level 3. What are the expectations as we allow those sectors to open? What is the expectation by government? What will they be expected to adhere to, which already the country is already adapted to the health measures that have been explained, but we'll allow the ministers to explain that tomorrow. After the Minister of COGTA has spoken to the nation at 2 o'clock, at around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, we will have the ministers that are dealing with crime prevention, Minister of Police, Minister of Defense, Minister of Home Affairs, Minister of Justice, speaking to us. What is the preparedness of the JCPS cluster for level 3? Then on Friday morning, we will have the economic cluster at 10 o'clock, explaining what is the Minister of Mining and Minerals and Energy is preparedness for level 3, what is the Minister of Trade and Industry preparedness for level 3, again, Minister of Tourism, what is our preparedness for level 3? All those ministers, including some, or Minister of Labor and Employment also, will speak to us at 10 o'clock on Friday. At 2 o'clock, We will then have the ministers responsible for the social cluster. Those will be the Minister of Health, Minister of Social Development, Minister of Water and Sanitation, and Minister of Arts, Culture and Sports. All those ministers will speak to us at 2 o'clock on Friday. That will then end the briefing by Cabinet and the National Coronavirus Council on our preparedness for the 1st of June, which kicks in alert level 3.
Well, thank you so much for that comprehensive downbreaking there, Minister. But before I let you go, and as you said, not to steal the thunder of the various other ministers, is there going to be an aspect of public participation and public comment that is going to be considered in the draw out of these regulations and their implementation? And I'm speaking now specifically regarding alcohol as well as the mining and education.
You will know that as we started the lockdown, we are not starting the lockdown. That's that then. The lockdown started at level 5, went to level 4, it is now at level 3. When we started the lockdown, there was a community participation. People were asked their views. What do they think about them being locked in their houses? What do they think about the steps that government want to take on a number of their rights and curtailing their rights as a plan to fight this COVID-19 pandemic? People indeed agreed with the broad plan of government at the time. Both the communities, people in the trade area, business people, your labor sector, people in unions agreed with government, and people in communities, NPOs and NGOs agreed broadly with government. So we can say that whilst as government we are leading, but we have done so in consultation with our people. So our people are together with us on measures that we are taking to save our people against this deadly disease called coronavirus. We are not alone.
And I'm sure you'll agree with me, Minister, that those were early days, but there have been several developments as we've gone from lockdown level 5 to 4 and now to 3. So in as much as you may have had the consensus and the consultation at the beginning, there have been other developments and places where there hasn't been consensus. So what I'm asking is, will those voices that are not in agreement be considered as well?
By the way, you will know, as I know, that the President has continued to consult with many communities, even under these levels, under level 4, going to level 3, he has consulted with churches, he has consulted with business, he has consulted with labor under the net-leg regime or architecture, but he has also consulted with our traditional leaders. So there has been broad consultation. Of course, we might not all agree on every element, but at the end of the day, government has been put into office by South Africans to govern. But we are expected to take whatever measures that are in the interest of the public that has put us into office. We have done the consultation, but the consultation also said to us, government, we expect you to safeguard the lives of South Africans from COVID-19. And from where we are seated, we think that with our screening, with our testing, with our quarantine, with our washing of hands, with our social distancing, with all these measures we have put in place, definitely we have acted as people would expect of a government that is caring and a government that wants to save lives of our people from COVID-19.